What's your background, guide?
Hello, everyone. My name is Vaibhav Ali, and I'm glad that you are back with us tonight once again. Let's jump into the topic that I think is becoming one of the most important conversations in the Web3 space right now, the intersection of Web3 and advanced cyber security. Because let's be honest, right? The way the space is growing, we're talking about quantum computing, we are talking about AI. The attacks are getting more sophisticated by the hour. These stakes are getting higher, and the old way of thinking about security isn't just cutting it through. So tonight we're going to go deep in terms of how these two worlds are colliding and what this actually means for builders, users, retail investors, and the future of decentralized tech. And here at Aura 8, we always talk about the future of money. You can have the money, but if you don't protect it, it's not going to be there. So joining me is George, a dear friend. We'll be asking him questions straight away. But first, George, I would want you to go ahead and introduce yourself to all of us since you do so many things.
I've been always quite busy. I'm actually in Lisbon as we speak, speaking at the Lisbon AI Summit. But at the same time, yes, I've extensive experience both in AI, cybersecurity, and Web3. And I think those intersections of those three play an important role because they actually, on one side, help reduce the overall operational risk associated with AI. But as you mentioned, the traditional AI was already some issue when LLMs became extremely popular, such as ChatGPT, Claude, and Anthropic, and many others. The level of risk went up substantially, but the level of risk has gone up another notch as we started to implement agentic AI. That means AI that is autonomous, AI that works by itself without necessarily any supervision. So that means it requires a whole new generation of controls in order for it to be effective and safe.
George, you have also authored a book. Can you take us through that before we dive deep into this?
Yes, actually, I've done three books, but the latest one is a book known as MBC, that stands for Money, Brains, and Connections. And the idea behind the book is you can say it's 8 years of work with EcoX, where we explain what are is the key ingredients for helping startups. So think of it as a bit like a three-legged stool. If you want startups to be successful in today's environment, they need to have money, which is investment. The investment allows them to have the necessarily runway to experiment, pivot, and so on. The brains is really the startups should have smart people or good quality human capital. When you have access to people smarter than you are, you end up developing better tools. You need to have better solutions. But out of those two, the most important one is actually the last one, which is what I call the connections. Connections is about many things, but one is meaningful relationships. It's about ecosystem or creating the proper partnerships. It's about business development. It's about marketing. So it's not good to just have money and smart people. You need to have a way to effectively reach the market and grow the business on a consistent basis, monthly, weekly, yearly, and so on.
Got it. Let's now jump into this, George, with both Web3 and cybersecurity moving so fast. Where do you see the biggest growth opportunity opening up at this intersection right now? Like these areas that could go 10x in the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, first is the advent of LLMs and providing support for the existing way of doing cybersecurity. So, cybersecurity has already been broken for a number of years. So, cybersecurity to be effective in today's world needs a higher degree of automation, needs a higher degree of correlation, needs a higher or better way to process the vast amounts of data and understand patterns. So, LLMs or the modern AI systems that we have today are very good at doing that. So the traditional way of doing this in the past is by building what we call security operations centers or SIEM, which is security information event management. So what AI allows us to do is to handle these alerts, these messages, understand patterns, and respond to them in a more effective way. So AI is useful in discovering new vulnerabilities. Example, Claude was able to oppose the latest one, discover over several thousand of vulnerabilities that existed in the existing software, but they have never been discovered before. So the biggest first area of growth is to use AI in the automation of cybersecurity. So AI is very good at automation. The second area that I think is a big growth area, and it's an area that has not yet been properly addressed yet, is the most popular AI that is growing at the fastest pace is what we call agentic AI. This is AI that is operating by itself, AI that automates the tasks such as answering emails, automating Salesforce activities, pipeline management, prepare proposals, respond to client requests, etc., but in a highly automated way. Now, what happens when you go to this level of AI integration is now we have AI behaving like an employee within the company. So this employee is able to automate tasks. This employee is able to spend money from the company. This employee is able to automate tasks that normally would have been done by traditional employees. The results of doing that is that it increases substantially the amount of risk uh, that the business incur by introducing this new technology. That means the existing way of securing AI is simply not going to cut it. And today, there is not an integrated set of tools that are geared towards handling agentic AI risks. Because agentic AI risks come from many areas. It comes from the APIs, it comes from the data and memory, it comes from the orchestration aspect, and all these three to four elements are required each one to be secured in order for the agents to operate. So agents have to be a bit like employees. They have to authenticate themselves. You have to have this concept of what we sometimes call zero trust based security. It means by default, you assume that you have a problem and you assume that this is going to create you new sets of vulnerabilities and risks to the business. So you have to assume that you have been hacked. It's the concept of what we call sometimes zero-day attacks. But it's these zero-day attacks are now coming from the agents that you developed within your own business. So you need, as a business, to protect yourself against them. So the agents need to be authenticated. Agents need to have control and governance tools so that the agents are able to properly behave in the parameters that the business sets out for them. There's a few tools, like for example, OpenClaw or Claw Secure, that are starting to play in this space of agentic AI cybersecurity. But this is the tip of the iceberg. These are the first set of tools that are trying to address this as an issue. The bulk of the issue has simply not been addressed because you have to design security or architect security from the ground up as you develop these agents and how you put them within your business infrastructure.
Got it. Let's now talk about with agentic. In fact, in the afternoon, we had Mo from Ani Mocha Lab. We were talking about uh, Open Minds, which is their version of Open Knuckle, but very easy, very simple to use. And the way we are seeing the growth of it is perhaps nothing that we've ever seen. So one thing I keep wondering, as more traditional companies and institutional start exploring blockchain and AI, what role does advanced cybersecurity play in the making of the transaction actually happen at scale?
Actually, cybersecurity plays a role of providing you the necessary risk management. I usually say that cybersecurity, it's like when you drive a car, and today you have things like autonomous cars like Tesla or Venmo that you if you take a taxi in California. When you have a car or a modern car today, you have many elements in the car that reduce the operational risk. If you bought the car 30, 40 years ago, it probably didn't even have seat belts. So today in a car, you have many systems that cooperate to reduce the amount of operational risk management. What does that mean? You have the seat belt, you have ABS, you have traction control, you have airbags, you have traction control systems, you have autonomous driving, etc. All these systems cooperate with each other to reduce the risks. Now, does that mean you can still get into an accident and hurt yourself? The answer is probably yes. But the chance of that happening gets reduced dramatically. So, in the context of agentic AI, we have to pretty much have the same approach. We need to have a layered approach towards security, a layer that addresses the data, a layer that addresses the APIs, a layer that addresses the orchestration. So all of these together enable the AI to operate within the business context according to the policies that you find acceptable. What are some examples of disasters that have happened within the last few weeks? One example was an agent went out and got out of control and started spending credits. So ended up with several $1 million of AI bills that otherwise would not have been budgeted for the system. Another example where the agent, because they have access to the files, not just access to the funds, ended up destroying several years of data for the business. Of course, if you have a backup, you can always restore the data, but if you don't have the necessary backups, this can set you back as a business or even force your business to actually close in the first place. So, all these risks need to be addressed. What agentic AI is doing, it's increasing the attack space towards the business. And the more and the higher degree of automation that you have and self autonomy, the higher the risk towards the business. And now this is happening 24 by 7 without nonstop. And you don't have just one agent, you have many instances of these agents running in parallel. So, for example, if you have a call center, agentic AI is actually automating the answering of the requests coming from the customers by creating, for example, entries in your CRM system. Now, the calls can come from email, the calls can come from traditional phone calls. They can come from messaging systems like WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, or others. So agentic AI is trying to handle all of this workload in a as highly automated way possible.
Clearly, what's the new business model or revenue stream uh, you are seeing, especially in emerging tech, specifically with Web3 infrastructure that is getting more secure, uh, like things that were not really possible 2 years ago?
Well, I think what is important to do about revenue streams is that the old, more traditional ways of just account subscription or subscription associated with tokens, it is not going to cut it for very long. What you see most organizations today, they're overspending on their security costs. On another side, they cannot control or manage this overall security. So, to some extent, the automation introduced by AI is supposed to save costs in the order of 10x, 20x, 30x to your business. If at the same time, these costs are rising faster than your own employee costs, then you end up into a big problem. And the big problem is the AI is not returning the benefits to the business that it was before. So I think we need to start managing the AI. And by the way, this level of maturity is not new. One example, I've been involved in cloud for the last 12, 15 years since it became extremely popular. And at the beginning, everybody they say, let's move to cloud, we save money. As cloud became more entrenched into the business, what we realize is cloud is not always saving money, and cloud is introducing the business towards more potentially expensive risks. So then companies started to offering, oh, this is the way you do cloud. Let us optimize on how you use the cloud, and we can end up saving you something like 30%, 40%, sometimes even as high as 50%. So the same level of optimization is also going to happen in AI and agentic AI. So we're going to see a much more focused way of being able to justify the costs that we're spending in AI, not just spend with a blank check.
Got it. And zooming out for a second, at a fundamental level, how does Web3 decentralization nature actually change the way we need to think about security compared to the old centralized model?
Well, first, Web3 enables us to have better security. Well, again, quantum resistant Web3, because even Web3 has its own risks. And one of the biggest risks towards Web3 is the advent of more powerful computing, specifically quantum computing. However, I believe that Web3 and specifically blockchain technology within Web3 can play an important role in making AI more secure by introducing authentication and by introducing better decentralization. Now, authentication means the agents will perform in a more controlled environment. Decentralization means that the average user, which has access to a platform that runs the AI, will be able to shop around. And what does that mean? That means in the early days when, for example, NVIDIA GPUs are being accessed for workloads, we were talking about something like $15, sometimes up to $40 or $50 per GPU per hour. Once companies like, for example, GPU.net started to appear, people who had extra GPU power available were able to sell it and rent it through a decentralized platform, through a tokenization, through a real world asset model. So what does that mean? That means you were able to access the same GPUs instead of 15 or $50, now down to two, three, or $5 per hour. What does that really mean for the business? More efficiency, more saving in costs, and overall optimization of the business in the long term.
Interesting. This is an ongoing debate that Web3 has been too focused on shipping fast and moving fast, breaking things, and it's cost the industry billions. Do you think is the time we slow down and prioritize security more? I'm talking to you in terms of the DeFi hacks and the other things.
Well,
Or do you think that would kill the innovation that makes this space exciting?
that's actually a very good question. If you ask me, I've helped about four or five DeFi projects, especially bridge projects, the ones that have protocol bridges. What happens, these protocol bridges across different chains are basically broken since day one. So they don't, because they don't operate correctly in real time, they provide great amounts of exposure. And the delay in timings has introduced some of the most advanced hacks that we saw. And we saw losses of funds in the neighborhood of something like 50, 100 million, 500 million, even up to $1 billion in amounts, because the synchronicity between the blockchain obviously introduces additional risk. So this needs to be fixed. So your point is correct. It's not really just about slowing down. It's about doing the proper smart contract audits, about putting the necessary controls within the smart contracts, because sometimes the smart contracts can be replaced dynamically on the fly. So this introduces additional operational risks. The beauty about security is that there is always a solution. It's just that hackers, because of their innovation, always manage to be ahead of the game. We just need to be more cautious and provide a way to advance in security in a more safe way.
let's let's now talk about some people argue that blockchain transparency actually makes certain attacks easier because everything is visible on the chain. Others say it enables better security through public auditing. Do you Where do you stand on this trade-off?
Well, how do I say? Blockchain is a technology of trust, not a technology of security. Blockchain by itself has got the same cybersecurity issues that have existed in our systems way before. What does it mean? The blockchain itself is secure, but the interfaces between the systems, the wallet, the APIs, the protocol bridges are not secure. The DeFi smart contracts have not been audited properly, not for all the scenarios. So the blockchain is secure, but how we put the blockchain in the business context is not secure. So, yes, we need to move more slowly as we implement those systems in production, especially if those systems are introduced in a high risk area like financial systems, healthcare systems, telecommunication systems, aircraft or transportation systems. They need to be tested, retested, and then you achieve a better level of safety and security.
Great. Now we also have our dear friend Franco as the surprise guest for this show. Let's talk about, in terms of, uh, the way we are moving, in terms of how do you personally balance the moving fast in Web3 with the need of solid security fundamentals? Has this balance changed over the last few years?
I think the balance has changed a little bit because Web3 has matured a little bit more. However, there's still many areas of Web3 that have not been properly addressed, especially for the non-educated user. We need to have better recovery systems, better control systems. Example, if you forget your magic 12 words, that's it. You lose your entire set of digital assets. Example, you have custody yourself. What happens if you get hit by a car? Where is the backup of that custody? How does it get passed to your children? Many of these have their solutions, but in 98% or 99% of the cases, simply have not been addressed at the business level. So, yes, Web3 is a technology of trust and can be safe, but most of the implementations have not been done in a safe way.
Fair. Let's talk about, since Franco, you are here with us, I would love to know from you that since you and George have been working very closely over the last few years, what is the biggest security threat that you see at live events and community events um, that you have been part of?
So first of all, thank you. You guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is because just now I'm on an event of us right here in Dubai. So, um, can you just? But my headphone was not proper working, but now it's
Okay,
working.
so I
Can you
was
just
saying
repeat
that
again? Yeah.
that security. So we were talking about blockchain security concerns.
Yeah.
Um, Now, in live events and community events that you have been hosting every week since over 8 years, um, what are the some of the security concerns that you have seen uh, around Web3 at live events and offline? I mean,
Hmm. Um, yeah, I mean, like when we talk about like offline, yeah. So there's, I mean, like there's many things that are right now like happening also like regarding like security in Web3. Yeah. So it depends actually like what's the uh, topic of the projects, you know. So our and yeah, to event is like different kind of scenarios, you know.
got it. Thank you. Let's, last couple of questions we have. Let's talk about what tools do you think that we can use as perhaps not technical people to be aware of any phishing? Because I'll tell you, now anybody sends me a link, I actually run it through
Mm.
my chatbot, and I see that if this link is valid or not, should I click it or not. But what do you think? Are some of the specialized tools that is available to common folks like us, George?
Well, I believe that as it applies to phishing, it's very difficult to protect. And I'll explain why. We can have tools like antivirus, content inspection for the links. But what happens is that hackers have become extremely creative in how to send those links. Let's say you have a website called valley.com. I can easily replace the Valley with a VA1LI or VALI1. The average user will not see the difference. Sometimes the content inspection may not see the difference. So they will end up still clicking on the link and get the transaction infected. So that really means that even a cybersecurity person with many years of experience will eventually get hacked. So the issue means what are you able to do to respond once you get hacked? So it's the response mechanism that you take that matters, not just the fact that you got hacked in the first place.
And which tokens do you think are great in terms of promoting or in terms of helping the cyber security ecosystem grow? Because the reason why I'm asking you this question is because we are live on Binance Square, and we have a lot of retail audience there. And since we are talking about cyber security, are there any tokens related to cyber security that we should be paying attention to?
Yes, I believe the things that is important is that you should focus on things that are delivering education. So the more education that you receive, the better chance that you'll succeed because education means better awareness. The second set of things is that the solutions that actually combine AI or higher degrees of automation. So higher degrees of automation also can help reduce the response to some of the security threats, not all of them. It can cause its own security risks, but if properly implemented, can also substantially reduce the security risks and the security threats as well.
Great. I know that you have to leave, so we'll try and make this short. Franco, what is something that you would like to tell everybody in terms of to be careful on the internet or the cybersecurity bit? What is something that you would like to tell them, Franco?
I mean, like I just had a conversation right now with some people that are here. We just talk about our those security things also online. I mean, like right now on a daily basis, we're receiving emails, receiving in all those community channels, right? For example, we are like all like the people who are like in crypto blockchain tech. We are like members in a lot of security WhatsApp groups, right? So Telegram, and we should be really really careful about what we are clicking, okay, or so because wrong click, and of course your whole system can be affected. So my advice is like, just click what you know. Before you click, copy the link, go on Google, go on ChatGPT, do quick research about what are you receiving, and that's always my advice, to do a research before you click, because the click you cannot reverse, right? But you can read and read again and then decide to click. I think that's the easy, very simple way to avoid kind of or those kind of things, you know.
Thank you. I think whatever you said makes a lot of sense, um, especially for the retail audience. George, what is your final suggestions in terms of how can we avoid various DeFi hacks that is going on as retail investors watching this? Where should they put their money and how should they be careful?
I think the best way is to remain vigilant, always educate themselves. This is why I created the methodology quite a few years ago that I call the 6 A's of security: assess, architect, apply, administer, awareness, and agility. So when you do these 6 A's on a regular basis, it actually reduces your overall operational risk as an individual, but also as a business as well. So apply the 6 A's. I can send you a few links to the presentation about the 6 A's.
Sounds good. Thank you guys so much for your time. I know George is busy at an event, and Franco, you have to start another event. So, everyone, thank you for watching us. This is, I think, the shortest that we have gone live on Aura 8. It is just because our guests are supremely busy, and I'm glad they could take our time and be a part of it. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of this.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure.